It's great to see you. You know, we're going to get into some of those tough choices now with one of the people you saw in Diane's piece, Rand Paul. He's the one who's going to be living with his dad. He's the new senator from Kentucky. He joins his father, Ron Paul, the congressman from Texas, and when they're both sworn in, they're going to make history. The first time a father serves in the House while his son serves in the Senate. Gentlemen, welcome to you both this morning. I guess you all are the reverse of the Kennedys. You had Senator Ted Kennedy and his son, Patrick. You guys are the opposite.
Good to be with you.
Good to see you all. Let's get into some of the tough choices you are going to face that Diane set up right there, starting with the cutting of the spending. I look at this pledge to America that so many Republicans ran on this year, and it says we will roll back government spending to pre-stimulus, pre-bailout levels, saving at least $100 billion in the first year alone. Yet we read this morning in the New York Times, and let me start with you, Senator-to-be Paul, saying that they're scaling back that ambitions. Aides to the House Republican leaders say the goal is now $50 to $60 billion. You on with that?
Well, our goal is a little more ambitious. We have a bill that we're working on that'll be $500 billion. You know, $50 billion is not even scratching the surface. The debt problem is enormous. You know, we're bringing in about $2 trillion and spending nearly $4 trillion. So $50 billion is not enough to scratch the surface. We have to find much, much more. If you go back just to 2008 levels, that's $100 billion. We have to at least do that.
Well, but your leaders are, at least in the House, Congressman Paul, say now they're not doing that. They're only going to go for the $50–60 billion. And they've only come up so far with specific cuts of $35 million. Are you disappointed in your leaders?
Well, the interesting thing is when we interviewed all the new people to Congress yesterday with Diane, you found that there was some steadfastness there to push the leadership towards more. In fact, a lot of us think that raising the debt ceiling should be linked to a balanced budget rule, and that immediately, if you want us to vote to raise the debt ceiling, promise in law that you will balance the budget from here on after. The people are tired of it. The people don't want to add more debt. The people are worried about the debt and what it does to our economy.
You talk about raising the debt ceiling. Let me get to that. The president's chief economic advisor, Austin Goolsbee, was on talking about that on This Week on Sunday, and he said that failure to raise the debt limit would be catastrophic. Take a look.
The debt ceiling is not something to toy with. If we hit the debt ceiling, that's essentially defaulting on our obligations, which is totally unprecedented in American history. The impact on the economy would be catastrophic.
He said it would be catastrophic. Congressman Paul, at one point he said that it would be insane. How far are you going to push this? What would be the worst outcome, failing to extend the debt limit or failing to secure the spending cuts you're talking about?
Well, I think failing to stop the spending and not raise the debt, that's the most important thing. There's always a default. He's just talking about a different type of default. Every year we default because we just print the money and then we pay our bills with cheap money. Not raising the debt limit is admitting that we're in default and cheating people all the time. So it's very, very important that we do this, and this would stop and make us think. This is what would happen on the state level, and this is what should, happen with businesses. But eventually, we just can't keep bailing out everybody by printing the money and pretending we're not defaulting.
So if you push this, you describe this as default. If you push this, and the country actually goes into default, you find that acceptable?
Well, the interesting thing is, President Obama in 2006 voted against raising the debt ceiling. He said our leaders were being irresponsible and were not cutting spending the way they did. And so, just 2 years ago, President Obama thought it was the responsible thing or 4 years ago now, to vote against raising the debt ceiling. So I think what it is nobody wants to shut government down. Nobody wants to stop the park rangers from getting their salary or their teachers from getting their salary. What we want, though, is not to give up and say, oh, just do whatever you want like it's always been. All of the new people coming to Washington are going to insist that it changes and that if we raise the debt ceiling, it has to be linked to something. And we're not talking about $50 billion in cuts. You have to link it to say, from the future, from here on out, we're going to balance the budget.
Go ahead, Congressman, last word.
Well, I was saying, I don't see this entirely as a budgetary problem. I see this as a philosophy of government problem. If you don't repeal the welfare warfare state and get rid of the incentive to do this, you can't deal with this, because nobody wants to give up on the militarism of our government that we pursue. Nobody wants to give up on welfare. And right now we're at a point where there is so much momentum, there won't be any significant cuts until we have a financial dollar crisis. And that's what's coming, and that's why it's so crucial. I fight for cutting back and cutting the spending and cutting the taxes, but unfortunately we're going to pursue a policy that's going to bring us down in a much more difficult way than us having a closure of government and facing the fact that we're bankrupt and we can't pay our bills.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you both for your time this morning. Congratulations.
Thank you.